I turned the ignition key and felt a heavy weight lift. Relief, maybe, or the exhaustion that comes with finally deciding to stop running. The truck rumbled to life. I pulled out a motel parking lot, heading up the mountain road, the route winding ahead like a question mark. I'd driven it 100 times before, but today felt different, like I was heading towards something, not just away from everything else. As I climbed higher, the pine trees thickened in the sharp, clean scent of the forest filled the cab. My hands moved with practiced ease along the steering wheel, each curve familiar thanks to years of seasonal work. But it had been a year since I'd last done this job, working odd jobs and drifting, and I wasn't sure I remember how to do it anymore. The radio tower was the first thing I saw, then Tower 4 itself. A 60-foot steel structure with a small, weathered cabin on top. My old home. It hadn't changed. Gray wood, wraparound catwalk, windows catching the sun. I parked next to the shed and sat in silence, letting the quiet shock of the forest settle in. Climbing the metal stairs. Each step echoed memories I'd tried to forget. My father had worked this tower long before me. Sometimes I wondered if he'd felt the same mix of dread and familiarity when returning. Inside, everything was as I'd left it. Desk, radio equipment, bed, kitchen nook. I dropped my bag and got to work. Routine returned quickly. Testing radios, checking weather instruments, calibrating the firefinder. The check-in with other towers went smoothly. Their voices crackled to the static, brief, professional, familiar. By sundown, I started to feel like I belonged again. I brewed coffee and sat by the window, watching the forest settle into itself as golden light faded into dusk. Then, just past 9 p.m., a radio call broke the quiet. Tower 7 to all stations, smoke in the eastern sector. Requesting confirmation from Tower 4. That was me. I grabbed binoculars, but couldn't see clearly from inside. I stepped onto the catwalk, breaking protocol. You don't leave the tower at night unless it's critical. The air was sharp and cold, and through the trees, I saw it. A faint orange glow on the ridgeline, about 5 miles away. Small but real. I radioed in my confirmation. Just as I was about to return inside, I noticed something below. Movement. A man, standing in the clearing. At first, I thought it was a shadow, but he stood too still, wearing a dark jacket, looking straight up at me. "Hey, please let me in," he said. His voice was calm, emotionless. I leaned over the rail. "What do you want?" "Hey, please let me in." The exact same words, tone, cadence. I told him to head to the ranger station. He repeated, "I need shelter from the cold," still flat and unchanging. Something felt wrong. Too wrong. I tried radioing the others, just static. I considered calling it in, but it felt ridiculous. Then I remembered Michael, my supervisor, had given me his personal number for emergencies. I called. Michael answered groggily, but quickly became alert. What did he say? What did he look like? I told him everything. He sighed, brushing it off as college kids playing pranks. It happens. They hike up here, mess with lookouts. But it hadn't felt like a prank. The voice, the stillness, the disappearance. Still, I agreed, not fully convinced. Locked the door, checked the windows. No signal on my cell. I tried to sleep, but I kept waking up, hearing phantom footsteps on the stairs. The last thing I heard before sleep finally claimed me was that voice, echoing in my dreams. "Hey, please let me in." The next morning felt surreal. The forest looked harmless again. I convinced myself it had just been a strange encounter with a backpacker. Then, around 10 a.m., a woman in hiking gear knocked from below. "I'm Betty Bennett, from State University. I was hoping to ask you a few questions." She was a folklore researcher, studying unusual events related to fire towers. She already knew my name, and that my father had worked the same post. That alone sent a chill down my spine. She asked if I had experienced anything strange. I hesitated, then told her about last night. She nodded, flipped through her notes. Tower 12 had the same thing happen last month. Same phrases, same behavior, mechanical voice. It's not new. Your tower in particular has a history. Betty promised to return later with more documents. incident reports, clippings, and old logs. An hour later, another vehicle arrived. This time, a park ranger named Maria Patterson. She had the bearing of someone who dealt with danger before. "We've had strange reports from this sector," she said. "People repeating scripted phrases, ignoring questions. 3 hikers have gone missing in the past 2 months." She handed me her card. "If anyone comes here acting weird, don't handle it alone. Call me first, then your supervisor. And whatever you do, don't let them in." She left, and I sat at my desk, shaken. 2 warnings in 1 morning. Neither was coincidence. That night, I sat by the window again, coffee in hand, binoculars ready. Just before 9 p.m., movement in the clearing. The man was back. He stood in the same spot, the same rigid posture, but now he held a deer skull in one hand. "Hey, please let me in." His voice, identical to the night before. "Then, go away. Leave me alone." My voice, my exact words from last night, repeated back to me. I looked through the binoculars. His eyes were pitch black, reflecting light like an animal's. When he spoke again, he used my voice perfectly. Not just the tone, but the fear, the words I'd said to Michael the night before. I grabbed the radio. "Tower 4 to base. Emergency." Michael answered quickly. "Lock everything. Don't go outside. Don't let it in. I'm on my way." Outside, the thing kept repeating my words. Radio calls, conversations, mimicking me with precision. It walked the catwalk, rattled the windows, dragged claws across the door. All night, it circled like a predator. It was still using my voice when it finally left around 3 a.m. I didn't move until sunrise. I spotted something white on the ground. Another skull. Michael arrived just after dawn. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "We need to go," he said. "Now." He wouldn't answer questions until we reached the ranger station 15 miles away. There, in a quiet conference room, an older man named Fred Montgomery waited. "I knew your father," he said, "and he left something for you." Fred handed me an envelope, my name, written in my father's handwriting. Inside was a letter he'd written 25 years ago, before I was born. "Brent, if you're reading this, it means you've met one of them. I'm sorry. I hoped it would end with me." He called them mimics. Entities that copy voices, behaviors, even people. They can't hurt you unless you let them in. They can't break in, but they're persistent, smart, patient. He'd had 17 encounters over 15 years, each one worse than the last. They learn, they evolve, and apparently they're drawn to our family. My bloodline. I asked Fred how many people knew. "Only a few. We keep it quiet, or no one would work the towers." Michael admitted they'd suspected my tower would attract them again, that maybe I could help understand them better. They hadn't told me because I wouldn't have taken the job. They used me as bait. Before I could respond, Betty arrived, her box of files overflowing. Newspaper clippings, old logs, missing persons reports dating back nearly a century. Tower 4 had more incidents than any other tower in the region. Lookouts who vanished without a trace. Reports of mimics using voices of dead relatives. Reports that mirrored what I'd just been through, down to the exact words. "This place is different," Betty said. "I don't know why, but it draws them." I looked at the map she unrolled on the table. Dozens of red, excess marked past incidents. And mine was just the latest. Fred leaned over the map and tapped the area surrounding Tower 4. "There's a reason we've never been able to shut this sector down. Every time we try to reroute or close it, something, bureaucracy, politics, accidents, gets in the way. It's like the forest wants this place occupied." Betty slid another folder across the table. Inside were hand-drawn maps from 1962. "This tower was built on top of something older," she said. "Before the Forest Service, before the park. This ridge was part of a native ritual site, one believed to be cursed. Locals called it a spirit channel. A thin place." Michael crossed his arms. "We're not talking ghosts here. We're talking something else. Something that can mimic us, read us. It needs proximity to do it. That's why the towers matter. I felt a cold knot form in my chest. Then why not destroy the towers? Burn them, tear them down? Fred looked grim. We did. Once. In 78. 3 towers were pulled. The mimics didn't disappear. They spread. Started showing up in campsites, towns. One even followed a ranger home. The towers act like magnets, but also like containment. They draw them in and keep them out of the rest of the world. It sounded insane. And yet, the evidence was everywhere. Photos of strange footprints, distorted radio transcripts, missing persons, tower logs where lookouts documented voices calling from the woods in perfect imitation. I need to go back, I said quietly. Michael stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You barely made it through 2 nights. Exactly. I saw it. It saw me. If we want to understand them or stop them, we need more than just maps and reports. Fred hesitated, then nodded slowly. We'll increase surveillance. Put a drone on patrol. Set up motion-triggered cameras. You won't be alone this time. I returned to Tower 4 that evening. Everything felt the same, and yet not. The stillness had an edge to it now, like the forest was holding its breath. At 8:47 p.m., before night fully claimed the ridge, the mimic returned. But this time it brought friends. 3 figures stood in the clearing, all motionless, all staring straight up at me. They spoke in unison. Hey, please let us in. Then the tallest one stepped forward, holding something aloft. A radio. Mine. The one I had used 2 nights earlier, now missing from my cabin. I'd assumed it had been knocked behind the desk. Through its tiny speaker, my voice crackled. Tower 4 to base. Emergency. Tower 4 to base. Emergency. The others began to echo the call. Perfectly. My tone. My panic. They didn't just mimic voices now. They mimicked memories. Suddenly, the door behind me rattled. Not from the outside. From inside the cabin. I wasn't alone anymore.